What's up? What's up? We're back. Another week, another weekend. Tough in some ways, good in others, more tough, especially when it comes to football. Trying a new light pattern? Look how fancy it is. Woo! Woo, that looks good. That's my best Conor McGregor impression without the Irish accent, because I'll embarrass myself and I'm just not going to do it. But when he's holding the two belts, you guys get it. A lot of football to get to, a lot of takes, a lot of weird games, really weird, that didn't go as expected for anyone. It felt like this week, again, was like week 9. Do we know anything? Do we know anything? We're going to try to narrow it down, see what we do know, see what we still don't know. I have notes on every game. I was locked in this week. No distractions. Halloween I missed. You know, it was here and there. This week I was like, we're going to figure this thing out. I went and got plenty of food before the kickoff happened, got a quick workout in so I could just sit there and strap in, laser focused, like, what are the horse things? They're blinders. That's what they're called. Straight on the TV. I had up to 4 screens going on. Didn't move, taking it all in, took notes. And what happened? Both my first place fantasy teams getting smoked because players just decided they didn't have it today. Tough. You hate to see it. Should have gave a better pump-up speech. That's a fact. Some of my daily fantasy stuff popped off. Good. I hope you chose those if you heard the Friday show. And we'll do that every Friday in addition to the picks. Some of them didn't. Take it or leave it. We'll give it another whirl every week. But there was some gems there for sure. The picks, though, also struggled at times. We had 2 major picks, 3 really. One of them hit. We'll go through all of them. Some silver linings for sure. Tough week. The Mush rears his beautifully handsome head found here. And it really just wasn't necessarily my day. It was a Murphy's Law day in the NFL. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong. And week 9 was also, so just cross off week 9 and week 10, huh? But we did hit the Titans. We'll get to that. I tried to be so confident this week, too. I really tried to pump up the confidence. I thought that's what was going to do it. You be confident. The league knows, they respect it, and they pay you. It didn't work. Starting now, for this week, we humble ourselves. We go full humble. We kneel before the football gods. Turn this train around, baby. We're going to get there. We were on target with some things. Some just went completely bonkers. For starters, let's start on a positive note, huh? It's a new week. Monday Night Football tonight is going to turn everything around. But the NFL Red Zone did a whole segment with a guy that served in the armed forces. That was pretty cool. I wanted to shout that out because we're going to get pretty negative as this stream goes on, I'm sure. They let him call a play, and then he got mad live on air about benching Agnew on the Jags. Which, there's no way you had Agnew on your team. Give me a break. I'm not even going to look up Agnew's stats. You don't have him. I'm in some weird fantasy leagues, and no one has Agnew. But hey, if he made that up, good for him. Give him a job. And then they surprised him with tickets to the Chargers game and gave him a Chargers jersey, which is hilarious because the NFL finally... I rip on them all the time for doing everything wrong and being these two-faced, money-hungry, morally corrupt people. And he talked about how he's a Broncos fan on the air, and then they give him a Chargers jersey. Brutal. First of all, no one wants a Chargers jersey anyway. So even when the NFL is nice, they're still idiots. But it was a cool moment. Sports really just can be awesome sometimes. It's what keeps you coming back. The stories are just so good. The narratives, there's nothing like it. I wish I didn't have to rip on the league so much. But here we are. Get a new commissioner. There's so much untapped potential in the league. Here's one. And also just hire me, right? Not as commissioner, but as the guy that gives ideas to the commissioner on stream and everyone watches and loves and pays. These games at 1 p.m. just go too long now. Every afternoon game should be 4:25 by default. It doesn't run into the night game, and there's a way better chance that the 1 p.m. games are over. When there's a 4:05, generally, especially for gamblers, it's a nightmare. You want to find out what happened at 1 o'clock before you put in any 4 o'clock bets, or daily fantasy stuff, or anything. Just to watch. You don't miss games. It's absurd how long they become. And I could go on a whole crusade about replay, but we won't do that today until later, when I probably will. I love the staggered games. I love having the 4 o'clock, 4:25, because that is exactly what I want, to not miss any of the endings, right? But why can't we do like 425 and 445? Or even if it's 415 and 430, something. Because 4 o'clock is really bad. And gambling is a real factor now for the league. They're really embracing it. States are legalizing it. Eventually, they're going to have kiosks in the stadiums. I don't think that's exactly breaking news. You know, it's going to happen. So they should be steering into it and accounting for it. People want to know their status. And it feels like we're way overdue for this change. Nobody cared when 425 became a thing. It's no problem at all. Nobody will care when 445 becomes a thing. And I know they don't want to run into the night game, but it never does. So consider this a personal PSA for Roger Goodell. Consider my position. Offer me a job. Please and thank you. God bless America. Your league is not my favorite, but I can bring some good stuff to the table. A more minor PSA. And this killed me. Jules just tuned in and watching. Yeah, she did. Appreciate that. What a gal. The best. Bringing in the backup quarterback just to kneel the football at the end of the game is so disrespectful and so sad for those guys. I mean, damn. I wonder how they feel. I need to get a backup quarterback on here to discuss it, because it's so rough to never play, to put in all the work, to be ready, to wonder if this is your moment. And then just nothing. You don't play, you get nothing, your team's dominating. You're like, all right, well, the team won. And then they make you go out there for one play. You don't even get to actually play. You just snap it and kneel down. Can't the starter do that? They're not getting hurt. I don't understand. Anyway, let's quickly touch on our picks from Friday right off the bat, and then we'll break down storylines, wins, losses, box scores, different plays, nonsense, etc. Titans win. We had their money line. I said Titans and Broncos were the two money lines I really liked, and if you parlayed them, I apologize. But if you had them separately, you win the Titans. And we said on stream Friday, go back to it, it was so fishy that spread did not move off -3. It didn't. It never moved. I couldn't understand it, so I took the money line instead. I didn't take the -3, and what happens? I mean, we'll get into that in a minute, but brutal loss for anyone who had -3. And between the Bears game where Cassius Marsh gets that insane penalty and they steal that game from the Bears against the Steelers. So the refs take that one and you're like, oh, that was fishy. And then the Titans looks also incredibly fishy when it's a -3 line that never moves and it comes down to a 2-point conversion, which every bettor who had the Titans wanted the conversion to succeed and then go to overtime and win. And it didn't happen. It's a 2-point game, and you're like, how do they know? How do they know? I don't understand it. We came out on the winning end because we had Titans money line, so it's the only good thing we're going to talk about today. So let me revel in it for a second before we move on to this other nightmare, the Denver Broncos. I was so excited for the Denver Broncos. I really believed in that pick, but I knew what was going to happen by kickoff. I put that pick in on Friday after the stream. I was ready for it, and then the line moved to a pick 'em right before kickoff. Terrified. Absolutely terrified. I knew what was about to happen. I couldn't figure it out for the life of me. When it moves the wrong direction and there's reverse line movement, you are dead in the water. You are dead. They know what's going to happen. Vegas just knows. I don't know how. No one can seem to predict what's happening except for Vegas, and they clean up 2 weeks in a row. Maybe they were getting killed early in the season, and it just isn't happening anymore. But yeah, it's 10-0 Philly immediately. Sweat started to flow, but we were confident. It didn't pay off. How do you lose wearing the Orange Crush Color Rush jerseys? You can't lose. It should be impossible. We need to investigate this heavily. They should be undefeated in those jerseys. But yeah, as soon as the line moved the wrong direction, it's a death knell. There was no point in even watching the game. I just need someone in Vegas to explain the reasoning to me, though. I wish they knew, because it crushes time after time after time. It's like a free win. Jalen Hurts. Unreal. Mushed it. Mushed it hard. We had a 4-team teaser. Colts, Bucks, Vikings, Falcons. I also had the Bucks in there. I like to put like a if I take a money line instead of a spread like the Titans, sometimes I'll parlay it with a big money line like the Bucks that I think is easier, just to sweeten the odds and bring it back up to where it should be if you had taken the spread. I've been doing it for years. It usually works fine. The Bucks destroyed everyone who did that this week. Horrible. The Colts were good. The Vikings were good. The Falcons plus 19.5 didn't even have a shot for the back door, so that was a tough one. 4-team teaser. We said it was for funsies. It didn't feel super funsy, but hopefully you loaded up on the Titans, and we'll get back in the ring. Don't worry about it. We got to pick later, and I'm super confident about it. Although, got to stay humble, so I hope it'll go well. Yeah, the other picks were the bread and butter, and more bread than butter, honestly. And I'm not even a huge butter guy, unless it's hot and like a harder bread or toasted. I don't love butter on cold bread. It's pointless, and it rips the bread apart. Melt the butter, dude. I also threw in a late underdog parlay. I mentioned it on stream, but I didn't throw it in my official picks. I had Lions money line, Panthers money line, and Seahawks money line for a huge payout. It was a lot. And it was so close. The Lions almost pull it out. The Panthers do pull it out. And the Seahawks look terrible. But that was an awful game. We'll get to that. Anyway, not the worst weekend picks-wise if you stuck with the standalone money lines. But we'll try to sweep it next week. We're owed. We're owed. We're going to sweep one. It's week 11. The chimney sweep week. That's what we call it. Is this what they do? They got like cool hats and stuff too. I don't know. I never met a chimney sweep, but I'd love to have one on my podcast. At the _podcast for non-sports info. We're getting a chimney sweep on. We're just gonna. I've said it all my life. I've always wanted a chimney sweep on. Quick Friday night NBA picks recap. If you watch to the end of the stream, we always give daily picks. And crushed Friday night. Cavs Nets money line hit easy. Launched us into the weekend on a high note, only to get crashed down. It hurt. But we stayed positive and humble. Saturday, Max Holloway fight. I said I wouldn't take him at minus 800 odds, and I didn't, and that fight was closer than it ever should have been for a minus 800 fight, but he's awesome. Him and Yair Rodriguez in UFC, that was really good, and Holloway should get another title fight, I guess, against Volkanovski now, so that was cool. All right, enough burying the lead. Let's get to the games. I have a lot of notes, and I want to try to get to all of them. So let's bring up the box score. And we start with prime time. You got to start with prime time. Not Dion. But you got to start. Let me leave this open so I can get back to it. Okay, here we go. Now, every single morning sports show on the big networks will start the same way. When we get back from the break, we need to tell you, are the Chiefs back? We'll be right back and tell you if they're back, and my answer may surprise you. Stay tuned. You know? You got to start with the Chiefs. They finally look good, but I'm going to zag a little while everyone is zigging. Zygmunt Palffy. I'm here to tell you the Chiefs aren't back yet. They're not back yet. It's a step. You're going in the right direction, and your footing feels a little more solid than it did before. But I have a few reasons here, so hear me out. Hear me out. We don't declare Jacksonville or Denver Super Bowl champions. God knows I don't declare Denver Super Bowl champions after what they put me through yesterday. From one of their wins, right? We just look at it like, that's weird. We try to pick apart what happened to the opponent. When Denver beats Dallas, it's more about what happened to Dallas. Why we need to be somewhat consistent in like, well, is it either only it's just one game or this is the trajectory for the rest of the season? So I'm trying to stay consistent because I don't do that with Denver. I didn't think they were going to go on a huge, massive run, and I did pick them to beat the Eagles, but that too was more because I thought the Eagles were terrible, which maybe they're not. We'll get there. Um, so let's take that same approach and say, well, what's wrong with the Raiders, right? Because they have fallen apart. This is a home game. Their linebackers got burnt over the middle badly. And when that works, plus the threat of Hill deep, it all looks better. Of course it looks better. Everyone knew they were screaming for the formula to work again with Kelsey over the middle and Hill going deep. And that's it. But, they didn't run the ball that well, which is a problem we knew they have, right? Still under 4 yards a carry. Darrell Williams plotted, and they got a 21-yard run and an 18-yard run. But aside from that, they were running into the line of scrimmage every single play. And how often are you really going to get 9 receptions for 101 yards from Darrell Williams? Are all these checkdowns just going to be available every time, even though there's no threat of the run? I don't know. Is their opponent going to get 9 costly penalties every single week? 4 of which, we'll go through the play-by-play, occurred in really bad spots on 4 different touchdown drives, right? Let's look at that. Because I think this game could have been closer, so I don't want to overstate how it looked. Let's start here. It's a 3-point game after the touchdown, and we're like, oh, we're going for this is going to be a shootout. Carr was looking fine. You know, it's already the second half. Like, so throw out the first half was fine. It wasn't like, no one's like, oh, the Chiefs are back after the first half at all. That was not the narrative. That's the narrative today with hindsight. So it's a 3-point game heading towards the middle of the third quarter. Chiefs go on a long 13-play drive, but it's aided by a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty. So 3rd and 4, they convert. I mean, who knows? If this doesn't go well, they're screwed, but they convert it. And then on the first down play, you launch them right into Vegas territory, right? And then they throw to Hill, fumble, and they recover. So between these 2 plays, the 15-yard unnecessary roughness and what could have been a costly fumble, and you had an offsides against Vegas anyway, this drive itself could have changed the entire game, right? So if they either fumble and give it away here or don't get this 15-yard penalty, who knows how this goes? They could be punting back to, I almost said Oakland, Vegas, and go down. Okay, so there's some penalties that hurt them. They get the touchdown, they go up 10, but you're still, at this point, I'm still feeling like, okay, we got a shootout here. They fumble on the 3rd play, but it's no ordinary fumble here. This was a pass to Deshaun Jackson. He's done this 1,000 times. It feels like he starts celebrating touchdowns before they happen. When is this dude going to learn? Never, obviously. And the fact that they even have Deshaun Jackson is ridiculous. Ruggs scores a touchdown on this play. Fact. I mean, he's in prison, and the shackles probably stop you from running super fast. But this is another turning point. It's a 40-yard pass. It's not just a fumble behind the line of scrimmage, and they lose it. So Chiefs don't lose their fumble. Raiders do. They get the ball back. They drive down. It's a field goal drive. So the defense stands up there, and you're still like 13-point game. All right. And then Carr throws a pick, and this is the end of the game. And then they pour it on in garbage time, right? They really just did. They poured it on hard. 38-yard pass from Darrell Williams, which is just a screen pass. Then the Raiders decided they didn't want to tackle. Okay. Then the Raiders punt. They had already felt like this game was over. The wind was out of their sails, and you get another totally meaningless touchdown. Another Vegas penalty. Another Vegas penalty. You get a Vegas penalty on goal to go. It just all fell apart so quickly. And then they have a 15-play drive to prove, like, hey, we can still move it against this terrible defense. And they get stuffed on 4th and goal from the 25 because of another holding penalty, offsides. There was a lot of penalties that went their way. And I just feel like from this moment, this could have gone so many different ways. So I look at 41-14, and you look at the Mahomes 5 touchdowns, and you're like, okay, but 2 of those touchdowns came here without question that were meaningless really, truly meaningless, a team that had already given up. So I don't know. I still see some of the problems that I saw before. The first half, the defense was a little leaky. They forced turnovers. Like, they get credit for forcing the turnovers, I guess. But if you chop off these fourth quarter scores, I don't know if you're going crazy over a 27-14 win over a Raiders team that looks like good Lord. They are just done. They are done. They looked like they were done here. The Bears game after Gruden is gone. Gruden coached this one, but the news was already out. They looked so flat. They only scored 9 at home against the Bears. Then they went in and beat the Broncos, so who knows what to do with that. This was like the let's get up for this because Gruden's gone game. So motivation was at an all-time high. They beat the Eagles, which makes me think the Eagles are just terrible. Then they lose to the Giants, only putting up 16, and they only put up 14 against the Chiefs. All their skill players are hurt, gone, jailed, whatever. So I think this team is just in a free fall. It won't surprise me if they're not even close to the playoffs. And yeah, the Chiefs were never as bad as people expected them to be. That's why I'm not considering them back. I don't think they were gone. We constantly were talking about how the AFC has no good teams. And now we want to crown them for beating the Raiders in a garbage time cleanup. It looks good because you get the 5 touchdowns. Mahomes throws for 400 yards, 70% completion percentage. Thank you for throwing 50 times and making the math easy. I appreciate you. But are they going to get away with 29 targets to 3 players and the Raiders defense didn't do anything to adjust or try to stop any of the 3? None. Look at these target numbers. 10 to Kelsey, 10 to Hill, 9 to Williams. This is what everyone's been calling for, but you'd also think the Raiders would do something. Go 2 high safeties and let Kelsey beat you, but don't let Hill beat you. Or shut down the running backs completely and just make it 2 people and not 3. You can't let Williams have 9 receptions and Kelsey have 9 receptions. Where are the linebackers? Do we have any? And the Raiders' depth chart isn't that bad. Like, they have players. This was just a mess. An actual mess. They still don't have a second receiver that can catch. I don't know if they're going to get this if they get this every single week from Kelsey and Williams and the running back, then yeah, it's going to look good. And if the other team just folds. But I don't know. I'm not ready to say they're a Super Bowl contender yet because the defense didn't show me very much. They hold the Raiders to 14, but it was mostly just some fluky stuff. Deshaun Jackson could have scored on that play. He fumbles. I mean, come on. So it was just a horrific display from the Raiders more than it was an amazing display from the Chiefs. And it can be both, but I'm just not ready to crown them. I'm not ready to believe they're all the way back. Is the answer just less Mecole Hardman? Maybe. It definitely helps. Can't catch the football. And you can't ignore the win. I'm just not ready to throw out everything I saw from the previous weeks. It's no different than when the Jaguars win. We don't all of a sudden go, oh, they can beat the Bills. They're good. They're good now. You got to watch out for the Jags. We don't do that. You can't ignore the entire sucking forever. And the Chiefs have been terrible for a while. You can't say never because the AFC is so weak. Every single team has a weakness. Every team in the league has 2 losses, which when's the last time we saw that? Usually at this point you still have an undefeated team maybe, or at least a couple teams with 1 loss. But I don't know. They get credit for all these things happening. It just felt like an avalanche of good fortune at the right time in the second half of a game that makes you, if you just look at the box score, you're like, oh, this was out of reach. It was just an absolute rout. And I don't know, 2 garbage time long drive touchdowns blew it out of proportion to me. If the fumble is a touchdown instead, I'm not going to say they don't win the game, but we're not going to go crazy if it's 24-21 toward the end of the third quarter and the Raiders are leading and the Chiefs come back to win. Like, it would be a cool win, but even if the Chiefs win by 10 and Mahomes has 3 touchdowns instead of 5, I don't know if people are gushing over them the way they are now. And I'm just not ready to give them the Super Bowl trophy for this. So let's see. They have Dallas next week. That's the game. I mean, you get a feel-good win going into Dallas. That's good. Hold them under 30 points, and we can talk about being back. Until then, good job. It's fun to have them in the picture for sure. And they're already leading the division, which is insane. I think the rest of the division lost. I think the whole AFC North didn't win either. So, again, weird week. But I don't know if we can just erase all the stink with one spritz of Axe body spray. I don't know. Raiders sent Axe body spray would make sense. It really would, for some reason. Okay, let's move on to another game that this one is way more of a mystery, but I've tried to figure it out over the past 24-ish hours, 22. I mean, the Bucks, there's no excuse for losing this game. The real alarming part is that it's off a bye. First of all, this is what I get for trusting Tom Brady. You know, I should have known better. After 20 years experience of him breaking my heart over and over in every way, whether I root for him or against him. And as I'll explain later, it hasn't been that easy being a Jets fan over my lifetime. Brady screws me again. Come on, man. What happened to Tampa? Clever pun, bad play. Alarming game, focus-wise, off of a bye? You never feel like that's going to happen, and this is 2 games in a row for them that are stinkers. They lose to the Saints bad, they go into the bye, and you figure, all right, they'll come out on the other end, crush Washington, crush the Giants, and we're on to the Colts, then crush the Falcons, and you're already skipping ahead to the Bills game. I was ready to say they went undefeated the rest of the year, and then they lose to Washington. It's just alarming. The key here was there's a bunch of keys, but the one that everyone is focused on is the 19-play, 80-yard, 10-plus minute drive from Taylor Heineke, shredding the Buccaneers. Shredding. That's the obvious ugly part. I think Tampa screwed it up way before this. By the way, I just wanted to touch on the fact that they score here, and then they take a knee on the 2-point conversion, because the only way at that point with 29 seconds for Tampa to get back into the game, which Brady would find a way to do, is if they turn it over on the 2-point conversion, run it back for 2 of their own, then they're down 8, they go score, they score their own 2-point conversion. So they take a knee on the 2-point. Smart. Cool. It's odd that the Washington football team is who I'm enamored by, but here we are. The Bucks just sleep. That's tough. Past tense. They were sleeping through the first half. There's no question about it. They just didn't do anything. And off a bye, you figured they would come out ready to rock and crush, keep the pedal down. This is the game where Brady beats them by 40, but is still thrown in the 4th. They just looked flat. And Washington tried their best to keep Tampa in this game. They get a field goal. They get another field goal. All these drives, 11-play drive ends in a field goal, 7-play drive, 8-play drive. They had sustained drives the whole time. This Bucs defense, I don't know. We'll talk about it in a second. But Washington settled for field goals so often that you're like, well, Brady's going to get it together eventually. And when they were trailing in the first half, it felt like their drives were 100 times better than Washington's because of that factor. Because they just kept failing at the end. And Brady just made some ugly throws, which happens on occasion. And it's the one thing that can crush them. He didn't look good today. And sometimes he has this throw where you're like, what was that? It's Tom Brady. And then you're like, oh, he's 44 and playing in the NFL. Maybe sometimes this might just happen. So if he throws 2 bad balls that both get picked, you can, of course, beat them in any given game. I wonder if there's more opportunity for that since their secondary is so terrible. This Tampa Bay defense, people talk about it like it's great because their front 7 is awesome and their linebackers are great with White and David. And you have Sue and you have those killers in the front. But the back end is really bad. And it just means that there will be more possessions in a lot of these games, which generally you would figure there's a lot of time for Tom to get hot. And when Tom's hot, he's better than the other quarterback when they're hot. But the truth is, if there are more possessions, there's more opportunity for their back end to get shredded. Their corners can't do anything. Winfield is a good safety, but he's alone out there. He's the only skill player that can do anything on that secondary. And it's hard. It's hard to get stops. Because on 3rd down, if you shut down the run on 1st, then you get to 3rd and 4, the secondary just gets picked apart. They can throw down the field for 10 yards without issue. And I imagine their third down stats looked pretty good in this. 11 for 19 on third down for Washington, yeah. So this is the kind of stuff where you look at it and you're like, maybe there is a problem here that we didn't really identify. Their coverage on third down was just a mess. They could never get off the field. And you can't give Brady enough chances to get it figured out. And they just didn't. They ran out of time. I also liked Washington going for it on 4th and 1, up by 4 to end the game. They needed the touchdown here on that 19-play, 10-plus minute drive. It was almost 11 minutes. And they get to 4th and 1, and you kick a field goal here, it's a nightmare. Because Brady gets the ball back and only needs a touchdown. You can't do it. So they go for it. You don't give Brady the ball ever, no matter how much time is left and no matter who's on the field, with any chance. And these calls are commonplace now, but that's kind of what I want to point out, is how commonplace it is and how cool it is that we've evolved a little bit. Because years ago, not even that many years ago, 3, 4, you might have said kick the field goal, stop him from getting his own field goal and forcing overtime. Now it just seems too easy for these quarterbacks to get down the field in 4-down territory, and you can't do it. So maybe some bad coaches still might have kicked a field goal here, but Riverboat Ron Rivera goes for it a lot. Good for him. Yeah, this is just scary. Their defense is really terrible, and if Brady isn't picture perfect, outgunning teams, unless you face a team that's run heavy, which there aren't that many of these days, I think they're going to have some issues. You get in a shootout, like, well, look at the schedule again, but you face Buffalo. I know they do. And they lost to the Rams, who can throw it. So you're like, that makes sense. This Buffalo game will be telling. Even the Falcons can throw it. If Kyle Pitts is getting down the field against them, I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but are you going to be able to stop anybody? Can you stop the Bills? You can stop the Panthers probably, because they have Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey, who we'll get to in a second. So their schedule is cupcake easy, but this game will be telling. Can you stop the Bills' offense? Sadly, the Jets couldn't. Shock. But can you stop the Colts' offense? I don't know. That's a rushing attack, so they might look better against Tampa or against Indy. But I worry what this secondary looks like. I don't think anyone's walking through that door to play corner for them. And if you get to the playoffs and you have to face even if you have to face the Chargers, Herbert is going to shred that defense, and all of a sudden you're in a shootout with a defense that you can't trust. The Titans are a rushing attack, so they're built to beat them. They're built to beat the Browns. The Ravens are a rushing attack, but they can throw it deep. What are they going to do about Hollywood Brown sprinting around? I don't know. That's the kind of team where you're like, oh, Lamar actually could have success in that one. The Bills are a nightmare matchup. I worry about them. I see real concerns from this game that I didn't see before. We knew their secondary was banged up, but this was terrible. I mean, Heineke, the longest drive of the season. That was the longest drive. It was incredibly impressive. I don't want to take credit away from Washington. They're feisty. They really don't roll over that much. And Heineke was 26 for 32. He had 6 incompletions in this game. You can't have that. And Terry McLaurin only had 6 catches. Like, he did it to everybody. Look at this. Dax Milne catching balls. Good for him. I don't think I know you. It's a pleasure. BYU. Played with Zach Wilson. It all makes sense. I don't know why. But Wilson, we'll talk about him. We got to get past this game, but it's alarming. And there's real concerns. And, I'm not ready to just throw games away anymore now that we're seeing it so often from everybody. Everybody has a couple games that have looked awful, a couple games that have looked good, and I think you need to take it all in. Same thing I said about the Chiefs. You can't just ignore the bad stuff just because everyone's doing it. That's what you really need to look at, because come playoff time, you know that weaknesses are going to be exploited. Speaking of exploiting things, boy, did the Patriots dominate. I've been saying for weeks that this is a dark horse team in the AFC. They're really good. Mac Jones is awesome. By far the best rookie quarterback. He looked amazing in this game. 19 for 23, 3 touchdowns. They were cruising, absolutely cruising I thought Brandon Bolden would be the pick. He only got 3 rushes and ran for 10 yards a carry. And he did okay, but Ramondre Stevenson looked strong. And really, they just ran it down their throats. They got a lead, and this was over immediately. It was more about the Patriots' defense than anything. But Mac Jones, this team reminds me so much of the early Brady years when Brady was just managing the game but looking solid, and their defense was carrying. They could run the football. They were better coached than everybody. That's what this game looked like. And the scariest part is, I really think they are doing more things with Mac Jones. This is a product of the league evolving and being more wide open and these quarterbacks just being better when they come in generally. But I really think Mac Jones has looked better than the 2001 version of Tom Brady. He honestly has. Not to say that he's going to be that, but man, he looks more developed, which makes sense because in college he got more time. He played in bigger games. Case Keenum came in and went 8 for 12. Why hasn't he been playing? I sound like a broken record, but you can't. Mayfield, he gets hurt again here. I don't know what you do. But let's talk about the winners more. Then we'll get to the Browns. Mac Jones made back-to-back throws. He had a floater to the sideline that looked like a Russell Wilson drop-in-the-bucket kind of throw. And then a bullet into a tight window between double coverage that is picked if it's a millisecond late. And he shows off the arm strength. Bourne goes up, makes a good catch, and it's a score. And it was just really impressive. Those back-to-back plays. That was early in the game, too, before it was out of reach. I think it was second quarter or so. And, yeah, maybe it's time to start valuing QBs that win in college a little more. Maybe the talent level in college has risen so much that you have to acknowledge how good it is to get through some of these conferences. And the coaching has become so sophisticated in college, too, that if you win games, if you get through the SEC and with little more than a scratch, which Mac Jones was able to do, maybe we need to value that a little more than we have before. So something to keep an eye on when we get closer to draft time. But Mac looks awesome. Even Hoyer came in and went 3 for 3 for 85 yards and threw a touchdown. The Browns were just done. They just rolled over. Their defense looked beat up. I don't know why. Their defense is actually good. I'm not out on the Browns, but they have these games where you're like, can Baker Mayfield do anything? He just looks so hurt. He looked overmatched by Belichick. I knew this would happen. I should have picked this game as the game to bet instead of Denver because on stream on Friday, I knew this was the Patriots game. It's Belichick versus an injured Baker Mayfield. I don't need anything more than that. And the Browns had one running back available, and Johnny Stanton got a carry. Shout out to him. I don't know yet. They had nobody. 3 of their 4 running backs were out. Baker Mayfield is average when he's healthy. And he's on the road against Belichick and a team that's improving and starting to roll. Why did anyone want to take the Browns in this one, and why wasn't it a bigger spread? It's weird. It confused me, but we take the wins where we can get them. Apparently, there's just no fix for what Baker has. He just needs surgery, and it's just about pain tolerance. But here's the thing that's underrated that people don't really talk about. Every time it's the pain tolerance thing, it's like, oh, he's tough, he's gritty, which he is. He's a leader, and those are some of his best qualities. Most of the time when you're injured, you're favoring something, and to me, it just makes you more likely to injure something else. You saw his knee get hurt yesterday. If you're favoring that shoulder, your mechanics are probably off, you're playing worse, and you're trying to protect yourself, consciously or subconsciously. And I think that's bad. I would have been starting Keenum this whole time because I think he's comparable to Baker generally, but better than an injured Baker without question. And you need to find out what you're doing here. Are you really going to keep trotting Baker out here and potentially get killed in a playoff game where he gets lit up and can't play? Doesn't Keenum deserve to get in a rhythm and see what you can do with him? I know you want to win these games. You think you have a team that can win. But if this is all an experiment to see if Baker can handle it, it hasn't gone that well. And so at what point does Keenum get the keys and you just trust him? I don't know. It's like the Dolphins with Tua. Do you want to play him? Because obviously it just they are so quick to have him hooked, and then they say in the post-game press conference that he's okay and he's minor injury, he should start next week, but he didn't come back in the game. I guess you weren't trying to win at that point. You're down $1 million, but you trusted Keenum enough to keep him in the rest of the game. At some point, just go with the other guy because you keep running into this. So I don't know. There's concern about the Browns. The AFC North and the AFC West, like I said, all lost, but they play each other this season. So there's going to be like a million playoff games, basically, toward the end of the season. Look at the Browns' schedule. I mean, the Lions, notwithstanding, I guess we'll have to talk about that. I mean, yikes. Ravens, they play them back-to-back with a bye week in between? That's weird. Wow. But then you got Raiders, who are in a free fall, but still technically in the mix. You got the Packers, tough. You got the Steelers and Bengals. These are tough games. They have a lot of division games left. Oh, wow. They've had a lot of out-of-conference games, so maybe they're a bad example of it. But and you look at the Patriots, and I think they have a cupcakey schedule, too. Falcons, Titans are actually very beatable. It's a home game. I consider taking the Pats in this one big time. At the Bills, this is a huge game. It's Monday Night Football. At the Colts, they can beat Carson Wentz. Belichick against Wentz. We've never seen that. We saw Belichick against Foles, filling in for Wentz. Maybe this is the revenge game where Carson Wentz turns it on. Probably not. They have the Bills twice. But then they have the Jags and the Dolphins to close the year. They're going to get to... They have 6, 7, 8, 9 if they beat the Falcons, 10 if they beat the Titans, and 11 if they beat the Colts.
It's caught! Hunter Henry's second touch.
So you can get to 11 wins while losing both of the Bills games. This is not a team I want to mess with, and not a coach I want to mess with, more importantly. Keep an eye on the Pats. They've been free money this year. They really have. And the Browns aren't dead, but this is alarming. They need to get healthy, and I don't know if they're gonna. And you start wondering what to do with Baker next season. And you can't do that. I mean, they have to try to win now. But those were the big games. We'll go a little faster through these other ones. I want to touch on each of them. I did take notes. Seahawks-Packers was just putrid. It doesn't even deserve the time. Russ didn't look healthy at all, and they kept him out there to throw 40 times. Maybe he's working back into shape. I don't know, but he just didn't look sharp at all. He needed a game. The Packers' defense is good. It's not this good. DK has 3 catches. Lockett has 2. It was just bad. It was all bad. And honestly, the Packers didn't look that good either. Rodgers didn't look very sharp. This game was 3-0 at halftime. It was the lowest scoring half in the NFL this year. No, there's been no scoreless halves. But the Seahawks get shut out. Does this end their playoff run? It's not good. It's really not good. They need to get right in a hurry. They need to beat the Cardinals. You wonder if Kyler will be back. They need to beat Washington, who the hell knows? This is Monday Night Football also. Monday Night Football, Seattle at Washington. I mean, going to be competitive, I guess. You got the Niners, Texans, Rams, Bears, Lions, Cardinals. They have a doable schedule. So let's say they have 3 wins. Let's say they get 4 because they face Colts. Let's just go positive. 5 if you beat Washington. 6 if you beat the Niners. This is a home game. The Niners aren't good. 7 if you beat the Texans. You're 7-6 now if you win 4 games in a row here, which who knows. But maybe Russ gets healthier. You lose to the Rams. You get 8 wins if you beat the Bears, and you get 9 wins if you beat the Lions. And let's say you lose the Cardinals. 9 wins gonna get in the NFC in all likelihood, right? Because there's only 5 good teams. All you got to do is beat out the Saints, Panthers, Vikings. Can the Saints, not including the, we'll go through the Saints and the Panthers, I guess. Can they get 4 more wins each? 1 with the Eagles, 2 with the Jets, 3 with the Dolphins, 4 with the Panthers. They can get to 9. Panthers can get 1 with Washington, 2 with the Dolphins, 3. Oh, the Panthers have an easy schedule. 1 with Washington, 2 with the Dolphins, 3 with the Falcons, and 4 if they beat the Saints. I know he included wins for head-to-head there, but I'm just saying who can get to 9. All these teams can get to 9. It feels like they're ceiling. So I don't know if the Seahawks are done, but it's must-win time, and you got to rip off at least 3 out of 4 in the next 4 weeks. I love Russell Wilson, but he just didn't look like he had it. And it won't shock me if he comes back next week and is fine. I always say Russ is a second-half QB. He tends to just walk before he runs and unleash the deep shots late, and it just didn't happen. I don't know if there's split stats for that. I should have looked. I'll look now. Do they have first half, second half split stats? Splits, career. Oh man, they should, right? First quarter, first half, second half. No, he's about equal. Maybe he's just a clutch player. I don't know. It feels like that narrative exists, but I just put a pin in it. So what are you going to do? They don't all hit. A funny moment, Russ escaped danger in the third. He gets picked in the end zone. He got picked in the end zone twice. I mean, this game could have looked different too, even though Russ struggled. If they score both of those, 14-7, 14-17, we're talking about a closer game. And then there was another play where he tried to throw a pick in the didn't try, but threw it right to the defender. It gets dropped. And then the defender celebrates, and Romo goes, if he dropped it, why is he dancing around? And I was like, preach, Tony. I don't understand it. I don't understand any of that. Also, can we talk about on dancing topic? I don't know where to bring this up because it happened a couple times in the day. But the taunting calls, everyone has ragged on them. I don't need to keep doing it. But didn't they just announce like last year or 2 years ago that they were allowed to do touchdown celebrations now? So these teams, sometimes the whole defense will run in and do a canoe or whatever, or something, a team celebration. That's not taunting. In fact, we're encouraging it now, and it's allowed. But if you do it in the middle of the field, and there's a player near you, it's a 15-yard penalty for the same exact thing, for celebrating the play. Which one is it? Because that seems so ridiculous to me, that it's the same thing. Is it proximity to the other player? If they score a touchdown and run to one of the bars in the stadium and take shots with the team and then run back, is that cool because they're not near the player? I don't understand it. If you're next to the guy and you stare at him, sometimes they throw a 15-yard penalty. But then the touchdown happens and we see him taking pictures for the selfie cam. It's weird. Pick a lane. Just let him celebrate. That's the lane. That's the only lane. No one cares about any of this. Anyway, this game was so disappointing. It was worse. It was worse than Lions Steelers. It was worse because it was more disappointing. I expect this from Lions Steelers. I expected a good shootout from Seattle and Green Bay with both quarterbacks coming back, and they just didn't look ready to be there. Aaron Jones also gets hurt. I've been preaching A.J. Dillon in daily fantasy for a while and in regular fantasy. He's going to get a chance to show off here with Jones out for a little while, and I really think he could wrestle that job away next year, you know? I like Dillon. He runs hard. He runs like a beast. Like he's trying to hurt the defender. And you're going to see something. The two-headed monster of them is good, but who do the Packers have next week? Vikings, at Vikings. Good game, close game. Both teams going to run the football hard, and I bet Dillon has a good week. Keep an eye on him as we approach next week. Vikings-Chargers is another game that I'm like, this is the one few game. This is the one game that went pretty much exactly how I expected it to go. It was going to be close the entire time. It was. Herbert looked good for stretches. He had lapses, which we've seen from them for some odd reason. The skill players on Minnesota looked good. They ran the ball not as well as I would have expected, but when it counted, they seemed to get it. Chargers actually had a red zone rush stop on Dalvin Cook at some point where I was like, oh my God, did they fix the problem? And then not necessarily. But it was improved. I mean, you'll add 3.1 yards per carry to a team that has Dalvin Cook on it. Chargers looked better in that aspect, but it seems like their offense has gotten worse every week. What has happened? Credit to the Vikings for going in and winning this game. I thought this game was a toss-up. It could be a one-score game in either direction, and that's why I like the Vikings with the points, because both these teams play in only one-score games, it feels like. But what exactly are the Chargers doing is a more interesting story to me, because the Vikings seem far away in the NFC. They can absolutely, take that role that I was talking about the Seahawks doing. If they could be a playoff team that just gets sacrificed in the first round. But the top 5 teams are so strong that it almost doesn't matter. But the Chargers, it was looking so good. You lost to the Cowboys, but that was a close one. You beat the Chiefs. You beat the Raiders when they were looking good. You beat the Browns by 1 million. Well, a shootout. And we should have known about the defense by this point. So we know the defense isn't good. But the offense has now struggled. And this was out of a bye, too, I think, that they started to struggle. Are we starting to figure out that our bye's not always the best thing? Maybe teams with momentum want to just keep playing, but you need it to get healthy. And you have time to prepare. But the Bucs looked crappy out of a bye, too. And I saw it from the Chargers a little bit, too. I mean, they're flawed, right? They were looking so good. It was Keenan Allen constantly. It was Mike Williams for the possession plays and the red zone targets, and it was Eckler all over the field getting the ball all the time. Now, Keenan Allen gets 11 targets, but it felt like he didn't have an impact in the game somehow, even though catching 8 for 98 is a good thing. Mike Williams has done nothing in weeks. Nothing. It looks like teams have just adjusted how to play to his physical style, I guess, or they're not getting opportunities to use him in the red zone. Jared Cook did nothing. Eckler has... It felt like they are saving him or something. He's not being used. 11 carries. 14 touches for Eckler isn't enough. He needs 20. Why is Larry Roundtree getting the touchdown? Why is he getting 5 carries for that matter? And Kelly's getting 1? So it's Eckler 11 carries and the rest of the Chargers 6? That's not even close to right. Eckler is so good. What are you saving him for? You might not even make the playoffs the way this is going. I mean, the AFC's a nightmare, but the Chiefs already wrestled back the division lead. They should be doing everything they possibly can, and it just looks like they're flawed. They just should be better on offense. The defense, I understand, has its own problems, but the offense is just ugly. I just can't bet on the Chargers with the way their defense looks and the way they go through these lapses where they forget how to play. I don't want to have my shekels on them, you know? Granted, my shekels make teams lose generally, but this is just not a team I'm feeling confident in. And I love Herbert, so it feels weird. And he has moments where you're like, this guy is going to be the best in the league without question. And then they just kind of forget about it. Maybe it's a coaching issue. Keep an eye on that. Eagles-Broncos, we talked a little bit about already. I don't know what to do with this. The Broncos looked so good, and now the Eagles... They were allowing 75% of passes to be completed on them, and Teddy Bridgewater just stinks it up. Didn't turn it over, but who cares? They just didn't move the ball. Just felt like they just go 3 and out. Field goal, punt. They score a touchdown. They're still losing. They tie the game here. And then from there, it's punt, blocked field goal, score a field goal, fumble that gets returned for a touchdown, punt, turnover on downs. This just felt like the fishiest game in the world to me. I get that Devontae Smith is really good. He made some plays that were honestly insane. But it just feels like Vegas knew. And the blocked kick and then the return for a touchdown on back-to-back drives, was that? No, the block kick, then you get a 10-play drive, you get to the 10, and you stall. So out of these 3 drives, you should have had... And you were on the 4 here. You should have been able to turn this into 7 from the 4-yard line against a defense that hasn't stopped anybody. You should have been able to convert on a 10. Let's say one of these goes for a touchdown and one goes for a field goal. This should be 10 points. Then you're on a 6-play drive. You're already almost in the red zone. And you fumble and it gets returned for a touchdown. This would have been at least 3. So let's say these 3 drives are 2 field goals and a touchdown. And instead you only get 3, and it actually got outscored 7-3 on those drives, when you should have had probably a lot of points. 17? It just felt like Vegas knew exactly what was going on. There was a holding call on a Broncos touchdown run by Javonte Williams, by the way, who I said was going to have a big daily day, and he got his touchdown taken back. Then there was another penalty on that same drive. It just felt like everything that could go wrong just did. They allowed Jalen Hurts to be good. Is he good? I don't think so. Usually he only puts up numbers in garbage time. He has some skills that you kind of can talk yourself into, but they shouldn't be doing this. They ran the ball all over Denver. Denver went into Dallas and shut them down. And then Jordan Howard runs for 7 yards a carry against you. And so does Boston Scott. Hurts ran it a lot. They just ran it all over the field. They controlled the clock. I would imagine time of possession was in their favor. It was 34 minutes to 25. Devontae Smith comes down with 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith versus Patrick Surtain was awesome to watch. And Patrick Surtain on the first touchdown, that was a long bomb to Smith. It wasn't even a good decision to throw it there. He was completely covered, blanketed. Most of the time that could get intercepted. Smith just came down with it, just made a really good play. So I'm not ready to crown the Eagles. I thought Denver just looked flat and horrible, and everything just went wrong in this one. I don't know what the penalties were like. Eagles were more penalized by a lot. And the turnover battle was 1-1. It just felt like bad stuff kept happening to Denver at the wrong time. And hey, I mean, Eagles win. Maybe they're not out of the playoffs. Maybe these bad teams in the NFC, I keep trying to find one. Someone has to come out of there. Look at their schedule. They got the Saints is winnable, the Giants is winnable, the Jets is winnable, Washington's winnable, Giants is winnable, Washington's winnable. Maybe they're the playoff team because they play no one. If you can go into Denver and smash them after Denver smashes Dallas, who knows? But I don't believe in this team, but I think they might be able to compete and beat bad teams. And they're facing a lot of bad teams here. So maybe they're the one. What do I know? Maybe you can't play they did this to this team and that to that team game. The circle of parity has just become ridiculous. But you got to wonder what happened to the Denver defense this week, because they were fine. Nothing bad necessarily happened to them injury-wise. They had all their corners. How have they done against opposing quarterbacks this season? In the Giants game, Daniel Jones plays, 22 for 37 for 267 and a touch. And he's not a great quarterback. What did they do against Lawrence, who hasn't done anything? They shut him down. Against the Jets, Wilson looks terrible. So their defense has looked good. Lamar doesn't look good against them. Big Ben doesn't look good against them at all. The offense, I thought, would come together because Philly's D was not good. It didn't. I get that. But this should have been a 13-10 kind of game, not 30. They did well against Derek Carr, 18 for 27. They do well against, Case Keenum, whatever. He didn't lined up as a fullback. They handed off to Gordon. It's just like, why is this the game that all of a sudden the quarterbacks play well? Dak didn't do anything against them. They just have so many corners and a decent front seven. It's like, what? Why did Jalen Hurts, of all the people, play well against Denver? I'm not necessarily even out on this Denver team. I think their defense is really good. It's just fluky, weird game. We mushed it. We just mushed it. It is what it is. I heard a stat around halftime that the Eagles had 17 sacks on the road and 1 at home this year. So football just makes sense, This is I've been saying you can't throw away games, but this one was like, this just felt like weird stuff happened. Denver won't be this bad defensively. If this is their worst defensive game of the season, I won't be that shocked. And, the Broncos were better. They tried to come back, and then they gave it away all over again with the blocks kicked and all that. You just don't dive into traps. The reverse line movement came after we had already put the bet in. But once you see it, I should have just put money on the Eagles and gotten out of that thing. I knew I was probably dead once the trap revealed itself. You got to avoid them. Let's quickly do the Jets, I guess. They're terrible. The Bills aren't. Whatever. Now Rex Ryan and Robert Saleh are fighting each other, which Robert Saleh was funny. He's like, Rex always has something to say. I'm not surprised, which makes sense. He does. But Rex was also funny. Like, stop comparing this guy to me. Rex Ryan is a credentialed, went to an AFC championship with an unbelievable defense kind of guy, and the Jets give up 50 every week. So he's right. Like, stop. Until Saleh proves anything at all. You can't, just because they're fiery defensive coaches, it's ridiculous. Mike White got crushed all day long. It led to turnovers. He finally makes a great pass to Corey Davis before halftime. Davis fumbles. He can't make it up. I would say free Mike White, except for that deep interception into double coverage, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. How many teams can say they have 2 quarterbacks that throw 4 picks in a game, huh? Jets are making history. They're in the record books. One way or another, it's important to be a team that can differentiate yourself, and the Jets can surely do that. It's tough being a Jets fan, okay? Just leave me alone. I'm trying to find a silver lining here. Zach Wilson next week? We're back. Mike White experiment was a fun little thing. It's gone now. And Wilson's back. We got to get back on that train. I'm trying to laugh so I don't cry. Joe Flacco came in, went 3 for 3 for a touchdown. So football is just ridiculous. An underrated note here. And this seems super silly in hindsight, but bear with me. I'll get to why. Did Miami unlock a little something on Thursday that I didn't totally absorb? if you're a team that struggles in the secondary more often than not, especially against a mobile quarterback like Lamar or Josh Allen, where there's a million of them, Russ, Mahomes, guys like that, can you just blitz constantly and force them to prove that they can throw deep quickly and accurately? Because if they force you to move fast and be technical and hit your dropbacks and be precise, they at least sometimes will force mistakes. They can put pressure on you always, and something might go right. And if it goes wrong, you are probably going to get blown out in the secondary anyway. You can't just sit back and play zone coverage when you don't have good defenders. So I saw the Jets do some of it this week against Josh Allen, especially in the first half, and it reminded me of what Miami did Thursday. So kudos to Brian Flores, and I think Robert Saleh probably watched that game, a divisional game, and tried to force Josh Allen into some stuff. You look at the play-by-play, it wasn't a blowout early at all. Buffalo scores here. I mean, the Jets couldn't score the football, but the defense was competing. It was 17-3 here. It was, very late in the second quarter, past the 2-minute warning. They had only allowed 10 points. It was all working. Allen didn't have good numbers in the first half. And then it looks really bad when it fails because you realize you don't have corners. And the Bills broke them on, where was it? It was the Diggs touchdown, so it wasn't this one. It was really... Oh, Matt Breida scored. No, maybe it was before the half. Yeah, it was. It was. And then they realized it at halftime, and no doubt they came out, Brian Daboll came out like, okay, we know exactly what to do now. They go one-on-one. Where is it? It's at the 12. Yeah. It's actually 3 times they do it. Incomplete, short, middle to Diggs, right? So they tried to go over the middle, which is a little harder because you have pressure coming at you, and someone can get their hands up and swat that down, or it's just harder to see when there's pressure up the middle, right? So then they go fade to Diggs on the left side, and it didn't work out, but it looked like it should have been a touchdown. It wiped out what would have been a touchdown. It looked perfectly good. And then they run it again, the same exact play. Again, the Jets bring pressure. Again, it's single coverage on the outside. And a fade, you're just not going to stop him twice, right? And so they go into halftime after doing that, and it's like, oh, well, you have no corners, so I don't know about this full all-out engage 8 blitz stuff. And they started to pull some more trickery to get pressure away from Allen and make sure the receivers could get in single coverage. And then they rolled in the second half. So credit to Brian Daboll for calling those plays and figuring it out as the game went along. But it wasn't always this way. The whole first half, that Jets blueprint that worked for Miami on Thursday. Now, Miami has better players in the secondary. Marcus May isn't even there. So if you have some players back there who can handle one-on-one coverage, which the Jets absolutely don't, then maybe you can do this. Or at least you can do it sometimes in games and force Lamar and Josh Allen and these big quarterbacks who like to be mobile into uncomfortable situations. Maybe even Kyler you can do it too. Although he's so fast, he escapes pressure so well, and same with Russ and guys like that. But you can try. You can definitely try, especially if you don't just have guys who are going to cover forever. And you can't cover forever against good quarterbacks. Not that I'm convinced Josh Allen is one of them, but you know what I mean. So I want to see what happens with that. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I still stand by the strategy as an option. The Jets just happen to be a defense that gives up 50 on the regular after hiring a fiery defensive coach who wants to be Rex Ryan, but isn't. So maybe the strategy wouldn't have mattered no matter what here. But I want to see some more teams do this against mobile quarterbacks. I'm going to look for that as a trend. Also, seeing Mike White go to the medical tent with 4 minutes left and putting Flacco in just felt like they were just patting him on the head. Like, good job. Good job, son. You tried. I know we sent you to war and you came back without an arm, but thanks. We'll put Joe Flacco in now, and then he scores a touchdown. You're like, oh, come on. Also, Josh Johnson must be fuming. He throws for 300 yards, and he doesn't even come in for garbage time. It's Flacco. It's the GM trying to prove that that's trade with a 6th-round pick was good. It wasn't. Anyway, the Bills are good. I mean, it's just that their offense isn't going to look like this every week. And you saw them struggle a little bit in the first half. It felt like the Jets could stay in that game and really cover. Like, at halftime, it still didn't feel this way. It's same thing with the Chiefs. Like, don't get blinded by the final score box score, okay? Most of the game wasn't necessarily like this. The Bills broke it open in the third because they adjusted. But if a whole half of a game doesn't go well for you, it's not necessarily always rainbows. And the Bills should be. They went into play a bad team and crushed them, and so did the Chiefs, and good. I'm not saying it's not good. I'm just saying don't do backflips. Because at halftime it was almost 10-3. So, I mean, Matt Breida's in the NFL, apparently, and he scored a touchdown. The Jets are just a joke. Saints-Titans. This is the... We talked about it in the opener, so I don't want to do forever. It's hard to know what to take from this game, by the way. It's just a weird game. The biggest takeaway is more injuries. Saints were already decimated with Kamara gone. They'll get him back. They run everything through him, so who knows what this team actually looks. This is just nothing. They had no one and still covered. So they're scrappy. Good coach. Titans lose Julio to the IR before the game. Not good. And they lose Bud Dupree mid-game. We'll see what his injury status is. It's a lot to overcome moving forward. If you ignore the record and just look at their depth chart and who's playing, it leaves me with more questions than I want. So I'm still not convinced. I know they're 8-2. I know. But you get this team in a playoff. Unless they're way healthier by then. They're doing themselves favors. They have time. But I don't know. They still have to do some convincing to me. I like them. They're good. And their defense is solid. But they still gave up 3 touchdowns to Trevor Siemian and Mark Ingram. I don't know. And almost lost. But this is, it's just wild. It is wild how much Vegas nailed this. Look at this. Where's the one where they score 6? Here. So Tennessee is up 11. Saints drive down. They settle for the field goal, right? And actually, go back even further. The Titans are up 8, driving to really put it away. They get to the red zone. They are forced to kick a field goal because they get a penalty here, right? Refs into play. So if this is a touchdown, the game's over and they cover. It's not. It's a field goal. They're down 11. Saints go down. They get to the 1-yard line. Should have scored a touchdown there, which would have made it... They were down 11. They could have been down 3 here. And then who knows what's happening. They're probably kicking a field goal at the end, and it is a tie game, and it does go to overtime. And we don't have to worry about that 3-point spread because if Tennessee wins, they would have definitely covered. That's not the case. They get to the 1. They kick the field goal first, right? To bring it within 8, which is the only scenario that this game ends in a 2-point difference. Tennessee punts. And you know what's happening. They drive down for a touchdown. They score. Now everyone's praying. Everyone that has Tennessee is just praying with the -3 that didn't move throughout the whole week, even though it seemed like it should have. Super fishy. I'm getting there. They get a penalty when they're trying to convert the 2-point conversion to go to overtime and save all the Titans bettors. They get a false start. And they're moved back to the 7 and they don't get it. And the game ends in a 2-point difference. Vegas cleans up with people who thought Tennessee -3 was so easy because it should have been 5 and it didn't move. And Vegas cleans up because Saints +3 cashes. If you wanted to say games in the NFL were fixed, if you were making a case, if I'm writing a paper, I'm pointing at this and I'm pointing at the Bears against the Steelers with the Cassius Marsh penalty and the nonsense that happened there to take away any chance. And it's just, I need to make a tinfoil hat and I need to leave it right here on my desk, right where Frankenstein is. It was just Halloween. And I need to put it on sometimes because this checks out. There was also a big roughing the passer call in the second quarter of this that the Titans got on a play where Tannehill got picked. So that was weird. But that is just inconsistent across the board. The refs don't know what to do with that. Mike White gets destroyed again and didn't get a single one. I'll tell you that. Not that the Jets deserve anything good. But they just pick and choose which quarterbacks get it and which plays and which don't. It's ridiculous. Panthers, Cardinals. Let's move on. We got to zoom through these. This felt free to me. I mean, I'm not betting on Colt McCoy. And, Cam's back. Cam's back. This, to me, it was so obvious it was going to be the Christian McCaffrey game. And it was. He goes for 1 million yards, both rushing and receiving. PJ Walker looks pretty solid. I love how Cam did what Cam needed to do in his small package. No pun intended. I'm sure his package is fine. But he scores and immediately gets a 15-yard penalty for taking his helmet off and screaming. And you're like, oh, Panthers fans are going to be so happy right now. But also, they're going to realize how annoying that's going to get. And that's just Cam being Cam. And when he's throwing passes into the ground and just spiking them in front of receivers when you think that he's going to be good. I don't know if he'll start next week. We'll see. But, don't be totally fooled. There's a reason P.J. Walker stayed in this game. Anyway, it was just way too many points. It's too easy to fade Colt McCoy in a game where the Cardinals have lost all of their players and they're super injured. So don't just get blinded by the record. Same thing I'm saying with the Titans. Like, if I fade the Titans at some point, I don't care that they're 8-2. So, yeah. It's funny because the old Cam actually fits really well with Christian McCaffrey, like really well. And they have a good defense, so all this makes sense. Like, this is how they were good when they had Jonathan Stewart, D'Angelo Williams. They go to a Super Bowl with Cam. They're running. They have people that can really do this. Chuba Hubbard looks better when he's not expected to be the full guy. They have Amir Abdullah. They have 3 running backs there that can actually play football. Abdullah's career is pretty much over, but I'm just saying. And then you have Cam. And so maybe he's more healthy when he's only forced to play half a season. He had an extra half season off. Maybe he can be a little more physical without worrying about getting through the entire grind of the season. I'm skeptical, but it's a huge upgrade over Sam Darnold either way. And PJ Walker apparently is just never allowed to be the full-time quarterback. But is this the beginning of a new... Is there something here with, like, is this the evolution of the Wildcat, like 2.0 Wildcat? Because it felt like what we have with running backs in a quarterback version. How you have, the Cardinals are a good example. When Chase Edmonds is healthy, you have Chase Edmonds between the 20s always, and then James Conner comes in, and he is the bruiser. And they both run hard and well, but this is just how they do it. Are the Panthers capable of doing that in quarterback version? Where they get to the red zone and Cam is their red zone quarterback? Or short yardage quarterback? I guess they're going to do this? Or does he just take the job? I'm not sure. But, someone call Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan and tell him that this is available to do. You can do this. You can have 2 different quarterbacks, I guess. It's weird. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none? Maybe not true anymore. Probably still true. I mean, it's Carolina. It's just a funny Cam Newton thing, but it was interesting for a team that, like, definitely doesn't have a stud quarterback. Maybe you do this. Tim Tebow died for this. This is what his career should have been. There's a Jesus joke in there somewhere. I don't know where it is. The one thing we nailed, absolutely nailed, huge narrative. We called the Robbie Anderson touchdown in this one. I said, get your props together. Get the Robbie Anderson touchdown. I was so psyched about this prediction. My best thing of the week, for sure. For sure. After chewing out Darnold, then Darnold goes away, Robbie comes in, and he's like, finally, I have a quarterback back, and scores a touchdown. It was great. Give him a quarterback not named Darnold. He'll be pretty solid. Did the Panthers just become a spoiler team down the stretch with this weird style that they have going on and a solid defense and an interesting coach that's willing to get weird with it and McCaffrey looking healthy? They might have. They definitely might have. So, yeah. I wonder if the Kyler and Hopkins thing, I don't want to talk too much about the Cardinals because this is a backup team, and maybe even Edmonds. Do you have to be worried about taking a hit to momentum with a team that was off to a hot start? Because it feels like they're just taking a break here. They got a good start, and they're like, we don't need to rush it. We saw what happened last year when we forced Kyler into the lineup. It didn't look very good when he's banged up, Same with Hopkins. And so they're playing the long game. It's almost like what NBA teams are doing with load management. Like, we need to get to the playoffs. We'll get to the playoffs, but we got to be good there, or else what's the point? Are we going to see that in the NFL more often? Is this the first iteration of us feeling that? It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation, because you could break your momentum and get crushed by the Panthers at home, and that doesn't help you. But if you force Kyler in, everyone would acknowledge that that's not good. So I think most teams would sign up for like, hey, you're going to have a 4-game losing streak in the middle of the season, but your quarterback and your best receiver, who are very fragile, are going to get a month off. And everyone's like, yeah, we can deal with that. We'll try to make the playoffs and just be good when we get there. So it's a marathon, not a sprint, and maybe we see more NFL load management. I don't know. Falcons, Cowboys. Just a rout from the start. I was just wrong. This felt like the Cowboys were pissed after getting beat up by Denver. They had 2 home games in a row. I teased the Falcons up to 19.5, and they never even got in anywhere close for the back door. In fact, Matt Ryan didn't even finish the game. We got to see Josh Rosen play, who's apparently still in the NFL. They couldn't do anything. Cordell Patterson got hurt. He's their best skill player. Obviously, Pitts didn't really get it together. He was double-teamed a lot of this game, and this was just over before it started. The Falcons seem like they are out of skill players, which is a big problem for a team that needs to score. Although I don't think they're dead either. They're a team that's going to look... They're going to have a moment where they're pissed that the Cowboys smashed it. Who they play next week? I could see a bounce back for no reason. The Patriots? No, they'll get crushed. This is the one. They'll get crushed by Dallas, and they'll get crushed by the Patriots, and then they'll come out and score 50 on the Jaguars. And you're like, oh, they're 5-7. Are they going to be the team to make the push? It's like, no, they're not. But I could totally see that happening. We didn't even get close to the back door. They just kept the pedal down. They kept getting in position to put Ezekiel Elliott in with short yardage and just score touchdowns. CD Lamb is unbelievable. They just have a lot of weapons. Michael Gallup is back, and Dak just seemed pissed. And this was just a rout. This is a Dan Quinn revenge game. I didn't think about that when I teased up the Falcons. He looked like he wanted to murder them defensively, and they sure did. They sure did. Just Falcons never got anything going. It just felt like punt, 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 punt. They score a field goal on the first drive, literally. And then it's turnover on downs, punt, punt, blocked punt for a touchdown, punt, interception, 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 punt. Yeah. Well, this is what good teams do off an embarrassing home loss. With another game afterwards against a bad defense. This is what you want them to do. If they're a Super Bowl contender, then this is it. I still don't trust Mike McCarthy as far as I can throw him, but it's not rocket science to give Zeke the ball when it's, end goal. They had a million opportunities to do that, so he didn't have to do a lot in this one. I think Dan Quinn's defense was the difference maker, and I like him, actually, but I can't trust McCarthy to necessarily win a Super Bowl. I know he's done it already, but he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers, and that is wild that he was able to do it back then. It feels like this season is way more about like who I can't trust than who I can, I find that bizarre, but we got through this season without having a super favorite so far, and no team with a target on their back. So 2021-22 is the don't blow it season, apparently. And I'm just trying to figure out who's going to blow it. 2 games left, and they're both bad. Jaguars, Colts. The Colts just took their foot off the gas, almost gave it up at the end, but they just felt like they had this wrapped up from the get-go. I don't know why this wasn't more of a blowout. Maybe the Jags D is feistier than we give them credit for. They did hold Buffalo down, but they haven't scored a legitimate touchdown on offense in weeks. Trevor Lawrence has looked terrible. It's Urban Meyer needs to go. It's insane. They're ruining Trevor Lawrence, although you would have thought by now you would have seen some moments from Lawrence that you're like, oh, this is supposed to be Peyton Manning. This is supposed to be like, but Peyton Manning's bad actually his first year too, so maybe this is that. I still very much believe in Lawrence. It looked like he has no weapons here. I mean, they have nothing. They had injuries at receiver. Dan Arnold is his safety blanket, who's actually a nice player and is rock solid for fantasy every week if you need a tight end, but yeah, Lawrence just hasn't had a moment where you're like, oh, he just ran it 30 yards for a touchdown. Or, oh, he just found Marvin Jones Jr. for a 70-yard bomb. Wow, that was great. That's the kind of stuff I expected to see flashes of. Maybe second half of the season if they fire the coach. The reason I love the Colts is they just have a great rushing attack and defense. And they have a QB that's better than, like, the Trent Dilfers of the world. I feel like people generally like those teams come playoff time, but they're going to have really ugly games offensively. This was one of them. But they're going to grind out wins. And I feel like fans haven't embraced this team, but they do embrace like the former Ravens. Like people like that kind of hard-nosed stuff. Even the Jets went with Rex Ryan. Keep bringing him up today. I just feel like those teams that run down everyone's throat, the quarterback can manage the game, and they're hard on defense. Those are teams that someone's going to rally behind and be like, could they go deep? I don't know. I don't hate it. I've never thought Carson Wentz was as bad as other people do. If he can keep turnovers under control, which he didn't turn it over here, they win a game. And I know it's the Jaguars, but if he doesn't turn it over, they're going to win a lot of games. Jonathan Taylor is a freak. They stopped giving him the ball, it felt like. Darius Leonard left the game with an injury. That would kill him, but I think he's okay. They can't afford that. Let's talk Lions-Steelers quickly. This is the worst game offensively. Literally. I'm not joking. It might be the worst offensive game I've ever watched. It was really, really terrible. Jared Goff, terrible, horrible offense. Doesn't even deserve to be talked about much, so I'm not going to. The Lions were running the ball well early. In fact, they ran for 6 yards a carry, so what the hell? Swift has 130 yards in this game. They can't score at all. Goff was so bad, but even just call better plays or something. I don't know. Hawkinson doesn't have a catch in 5 quarters. He's your best player. Even at the end, Pitt had the ball. All they need is a field goal, and they fumble the game away. What the hell? What the hell? They're passing for 1 yard here. There's 8 seconds left. They're passing for 1 yard. Why are you even bothering? Just throw it away. You don't need the yard. It doesn't matter. You kick the long field goal. And they fumble. It deserves a tie, obviously. What the hell? I talked about on Friday how teams are maybe too talented to go winless in the NFL anymore, barring a team really throwing a season on purpose. Because I feel like the Lions compete like most of the time. They play really hard. And this is almost point proven. The only problem is I shouldn't have said winless. I should have said no 0-17 teams. And we won't see one this year, and we're not going to see one. And I stand by it. Also, I came into today wondering if Big Ben is even better than Mason Rudolph. I did get my answer there. I liked the Lions in this game anyway. I had the Lions money line, which is a hard push, but it's not a loss. And when you bet the Lions money line, that sure feels like a win. But why do you have Dwayne Haskins if you can't play him? He's on the Steelers, right? Like, isn't this the game? The one time he can go out there, get a win? Is this a long-term project? Do we have confidence in this guy? Should we keep him around? They must think he's terrible. So, I don't know. This would have been the game he plays. Or at least comes in for Rudolph, who couldn't do anything. 30 for 50. They let him throw it 50 times. You couldn't let the other guy try to throw? Weird. TJ Watt got banged up. He seems fine, but that would be a bad injury. I'm not a believer in this team, but if their defense really gets rolling, and they are what I just talked about the Colts being, because I think the Colts defense is a little better than theirs right now, but I think the Steelers have potential to be that. I don't see their running game being anywhere as good. Najee Harris is good. So I don't like the Steelers as much as the Colts, but you could talk yourself into a similar kind of thing. Last but not least, Monday Night Football, which is, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I generally like to do recap a little more than I like to do preview. It lasts a little longer, and it's just, frankly, more interesting to me when you can break down what happened in the game because, I like to give my picks, but beyond that. What about the Lakers? Before we get to Monday night, we could talk Lakers. I think they need LeBron back. I think did they play tonight? We'll look at the schedule. I mean, you don't know. I actually haven't. It's been trendy to hate the Lakers, which is dumb. This early in the year with brand new cogs, LeBron always takes a little while to get going, honestly. He always tries to fit in his new team members and see how that goes. Oh, they do play tonight against the Bulls. This is a really good litmus test. I don't know. Is LeBron playing? We'll find out. Let's see if he's playing tonight. I know he was questionable. I mean, I don't know what I expected searching LeBron. How about Monday? We're not going to know yet. I mean, it's not till 10:30. progressing well. Yeah, so he's not going to play tonight, I don't think. Oh, hasn't even... Oh, I thought he's been practicing. He hasn't. Taylor Horton-Tucker's back for them, though. I like that. So I'm okay with where the Lakers are at. Russell Westbrook is a disaster, but if they can, like, stagger his minutes with LeBron and AD and just have him be the bench guy, I think that could work. Like, spark plug off the bench. He could play 30 minutes, but stagger their minutes. He might not finish games. And they need to figure out their rotations, but this will be a great game. Lakers at Chicago. If the Lakers want to win this game, Davis needs to dominate down low badly, and I would hammer the over in this game. So I'm not over them. I still like the Lakers. I know everyone's down on them, but if you look at Westbrook like a good spark plug instead of a starting point guard, and if you could get Rondo going or get another point guard in there, it'd be interesting. Before we wrap, talk Monday night. The Rams should absolutely decimate this game. It's fishy. Again, fishy spread, so maybe I'm diving into a trap here, and that's why I'm going to take Rams money line. Same exact thing, same reasoning as the Titans. This line should have moved up. It hasn't. It's weird. I don't know why. The Niners haven't won in this stadium in a decade, it feels like. They don't get any home field advantage as far as I'm concerned. They're 0-4 at home, and they didn't win there last year either. The Rams have been great on the road. They're coming off a loss where they need to play better and improve things. They lose Robert Woods, but they get Odell Beckham. That's still a downgrade, but I'm okay with who they have. And the Niners seem to blow every game. Their play calling hasn't been good. Their secondary is horrific, same as we talked about with the Bucs. And I just see Stafford putting up a lot of points, and eventually the Niners can't keep up. And their defense is just so much better. I don't get this spread, so it's a little fishy. So maybe divisional game, Niners keep it close, and it requires the Rams to win on a late field goal or something. So I'm not laying the 3.5 because I just don't trust Vegas with these kind of things anymore. But I'll take Rams money line. And right before we wrap, I want to do our official pick for today, which is going to be that same Rams money line parlayed with the Heat. The Heat are at the Thunder. So Rams and Heat gives you plus 100 odds. I got it almost at exactly plus 100. I think it was like literally minus 103 or something like that, which is good enough for me. I don't know if this will be a 20-point win for the Rams, but I could see them scoring a lot of points, and maybe the Niners find a way back in the back door, and that's what scares me about the 3.5. But we will find out. We will review it tomorrow, and Wednesday I'm going to do, I want to set aside some time to just take one topic and really pick it apart instead of just reviewing games and box scores and schedules and all that kind of jazz. So tomorrow will be more football, and we'll talk basketball and catch up on college as well. But Wednesday will be a little more of a normal podcast format if you guys are into that. So check it out. Follow at MikeMush Sports. Follow on YouTube, MikeTheMush, Twitch, all of it. I would love for you guys to join in on Twitch while we're live, 5 p.m. roughly every weekday Eastern, and we could talk about different stuff. And that's a wrap. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.